Well, hello, friends. Oh, it's so great to have you guys here. And as you know, we start right on time. So here we go. All right, so let me start with a question for you. What's the bold step that you've been avoiding? Maybe, well, let's think about that for a second. All right, so maybe it's sending that email, or maybe it's asking for that promotion. Maybe it's a hard conversation with someone that you care about. And maybe it's finally taking that leap on that idea that you've just been sitting on for months. See, here's the truth. Courage isn't something that you wait around to feel. See, courage is a choice. It's a skill, and it's trainable. See, most people think, once I feel brave, then I'll go ahead and act. But high performers, see, they flip that. They act first, and then the feeling follows. And that's what today is all about. Courage on command. Now, just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we dive in. So, this is Fox Talks. It's 30 minutes of science-backed coaching. So throughout this session, use the chat box to drop in your answers or one-word reflections or even emojis. And hit those, thumbs up or the heart or the fire reactions when something lands for you. It keeps us connected. And have a journal or a notepad ready to take some notes, because we don't just share a theory. You're going to actually learn the concrete steps that can move you forward. We'll do a short Q&A at the end, so type your questions in as they come. And if we can't get to all the questions at the end, I promise that we'll email you your answer directly. And for those who want to go deeper, I'll invite you to a free 60-minute strategy session where we'll coach you one-on-one. Sound good? All right, so let's dive in. So you may know that I've spent, over a decade working with Special Forces medics, and that I also serve on a search and rescue team in addition to being a certified high-performance coach. So you'd think if anyone's going to talk about courage, that I'd be teaching you how to charge into danger or something like that, right? But here's the surprise. That's not what this session is about. See, the courage that actually changes your life, it isn't rappelling off a cliff or running into a collapsed building. No, it's everyday courage. It's the courage to stand up in a meeting and speak up. To speak up for yourself, or maybe to speak up for someone else. It's the courage to set a boundary when it matters. It's the courage to walk away from something that looks good on paper, but is crushing your soul. Now, here's the reframe you need. So, courage, it's not the absence of fear. Courage is action with fear. See, that's really important. So let me break that down a little more. See, if there's no fear, then there's no courage, right? If there's no fear, then it's just an average run-of-the-mill situation, right? So fear is required for courage. It's part of the equation. You can't get around that. So that means fear's not your enemy. Fear, it's a signal, right? It means you're stretching. It means you're growing. So that means if there's no fear associated, it likely means you're not stretching and you're not growing. It's just part of the equation. So courage isn't being fearless. Courage is acting while the fear is there. See, high performers, they expect fear and they move anyway. Okay, so now you have that concept. Let's talk a little bit more about fear. Let's dive in. because fear is often what prevents us from acting. And what we fear is usually experiencing some sort of pain. Now, let's take away physical pain from the discussion, because that's not what we're talking about. It's not relevant here. So take away physical pain. So most fear shows up in three forms. So let me break them down for you. So the first one would be loss pain. And that's the fear of losing something valuable. So maybe you want to take a promotion, but you're worried that you're going to lose the friendships you've built with colleagues, right? Maybe you were on the equal level with your colleagues, and now you're going to get the promotion and be their boss, and you're afraid you're going to lose those friendships. Or maybe you want to start your own business, but you're scared of losing, like the status symbols of your corporate role. So that's an example of loss pain. You're losing something that's important to you, or your fear that you're going to lose something that's important to you. So the second type of pain is process pain. And that's the fear that the process of growth will just be too hard. Like just going through the process is going to be unbearable. So maybe you want to get better at public speaking, for example, but the thought of getting up in front of people, standing in front of people, makes you sweat, right? Your hands get all sweaty and you get nervous. Now, the only way to get better at public speaking is to actually do it, but the process just feels unbearable. That's an example of process pain. So you have loss pain, process pain. And now the third type of pain is outcome pain. And that's the fear that the result won't be worth it. Jen and I often call this, or say it as, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Okay, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. That the fear that the results won't be worth the effort that you had to put out. So maybe you're thinking of switching jobs and you're worried that, well, what if it's not actually any better than your current role? Or what if all your effort leads to disappointment? We could add a fourth fear, the fear of looking stupid. Right? That's how our clients often voice it, right? They say, I don't want to look stupid. And what they're referring to really is imposter syndrome, the fear that you don't really measure up or that you will be exposed. Jen did an amazing Fox talk just on this one subject of imposter syndrome. So I won't go deeper with that one today. So let's just talk about the three that we first started with. So let me ask you, which one resonates most with you? Drop that in the chat right now. Either is it loss pain? Is it process pain? Is it outcome pain? Which one resonates most with you? Drop it in the chat. Process pain. Thank you, Jim. Another process pain. Excellent. Yeah, keep dropping them in the chat. So here's the truth. Fear that is named can be faced. Okay, fear named is fear tamed. So once you identify which fear is driving your hesitation, you can start to take it apart. Okay, so now that you know the concept, the question is, how do you start taking this on, right? How do you start taking action? So we have 3 practices for you to create your courage habits. So let's dive in. So as you're making notes, maybe we'll title this first one, Micro Courage. So you don't build courage by waiting for some lightning bolt of bravery to come hit you. That's not the way it works. No, you build courage like a muscle, like 1 rep at a time. So we call this micro courage. So micro courage is sending the email, right, you've been putting off, or maybe asking one question in a meeting instead of just sitting there quietly. Maybe it's saying no to a small request so you can protect your bigger priorities, right? Setting a boundary. And every tiny act rewires your brain. See, confidence doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from accumulation. Let me say that again because it's super important. confidence doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from accumulation, right? It's the compound interest of all these small, courageous acts. Let me explain. So Albert Bandura, he's one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century. And he studied what he called self-efficacy. And that's our belief in our ability to succeed. And his research showed that confidence, like, it isn't a personality trait that you're born with. No, it's built through what he called mastery experiences. Essentially, it's small wins that proves to your brain, I can do this. See, that's why micro courage matters so much. See, each time you act, no matter how small, you literally are training your brain to believe that you can handle bigger challenges. So don't think of courage like a gift. Maybe think of it like a bank account where every small act is a deposit in the account. Let me share a personal story to kind of really drive this home. So right now, I'm learning Italian. I have some Italian heritage from my mom's side. So I want to learn the language of my people. And, it takes some courage to try and speak a new language. And so at first, my micro courage was just practicing some words at home, out loud, alone. It was using the Babbel app, right? So where no one could hear me and no one would laugh. The Babbel app was very patient with me. So then I started saying some short expressions with friends who spoke Italian. And I stumbled, I mispronounced words, but they encouraged me. So then I finally worked up to ordering coffee in Italy, in Italian, to Italians, to actual Italians. I was a little intimidated, honestly. I was nervous. And Jen and I were in Florence, walking in the cafe, and I told her I was going to do it. And she gave me that reassuring, okay, let's do it. But I was nervous. So I walk up to the counter, and I order for Jen and myself, I order our cafes and our cornettos. If you don't know what a cornetto is, it's like the Italian version of a croissant. So chocolate for me, vanilla for Jen. And so he gives me the little slip and tells me to go over to the cash register and pay. So I do that. I understand what he says in Italian. I walk over to the register. He asks in Italian, what did I order? I understand the question. I reply back, this is what I ordered in Italian. He tells me how much it costs. I understand. I give him the exact right amount of cash. And he sends me on my way. And I got to tell you, I played it cool, but I was so proud. I was giddy. I was probably smiling from ear to ear. And he's wondering, why is this guy so happy just for paying for his coffee? But that's micro courage. Okay, step by step. Each rep feels small, but over time, you build the muscle so you can handle bigger moments. So here's my question to you. What's one 30-second act of courage that you could take this week? Okay, one simple 30-second act of courage that you could do this week. So write it down in your notebook. What's that going to be for you? See, those little acts, they add up. So micro courage becomes macro confidence. Okay, so are you digging this? Just hit me up with some reactions if this is making sense. Okay, so practice 2. You would title this in your notes, Experiments, Not Ego. So now let's talk about experiments. Most people don't act because they're trapped in this all or nothing thinking. Or they tell themselves, if I start this business and it fails, I've ruined everything. Or if I give this presentation and stumble, my credibility is shot forever. See, high performers don't think that way. They treat actions as experiments, not ego tests. So let's think about Thomas Edison for a minute. He invented the light bulb, amongst other things. And as he invented the light bulb, he wasn't successful until his 1,000th attempt. Could you imagine that? Can you imagine being on number 997 and it didn't work, 998 it didn't work, 999 it didn't work? It wasn't until after 1,000 that it actually worked. I mean, most people quit after 1 or 2 tries, right? He was up to 1,000. Now, how did he do that? Because his mind, he framed it differently. Or he didn't fail 1,000 times in his mind. He just had 1,000 experiments. See, that shift changes everything. Because if it's an experiment, you can't really fail, right? I mean, either you get the result that you wanted and you learn, the result you wanted and you learn. Let me try that again. Either you get what you wanted as a result, and if not, you learn something and you adjust. So it's important. So let's make it practical for a second here. For something that feels bold to you, take action by reframing it as an experiment. So take a small step. And if it doesn't work out, adjust the variables and try again and again. And if needed, again, until you get the result that you want. Or until you learn that that path just isn't the right one. And I actually want you to use the words, both to yourself and to those around you, just like, hey, I'm trying a few experiments to see if this works. See how freeing that is? So you've taken the ego out and you uncovered, you've lowered the stakes, you've lowered the stakes. You're just playing. So try this out loud. Say these words literally right now. I'm just running an experiment. Doesn't that feel lighter? So type experiment in the chat if you can feel that shift, okay? Type experiment if you get what I'm saying. Excellent. Excellent. See, this mindset does 2 things. First, it lowers the pressure. And second, it increases your willingness to act. Because you're no longer betting your identity on the outcome, right? You're just running experiments until you figure it out. That's how high performers build courage, okay? They remove the ego. They remove perfectionism, and they just keep testing. Okay, so practice 3. You could write this down as the courage bank. So your third practice, build your courage bank. Here's how it works. You're going to write down 5 times in your past when you acted with some courage, right? It could be leaving a job. It could be having a tough conversation. It could be raising your hand for an opportunity when you weren't really sure that you were 100% ready. It could be ordering coffee in Italy, right? Whatever it is for you, you're going to write down 5 times that you exhibited courage. And this becomes your courage bank. So why does this matter? Because in the moment of fear, your brain plays tricks. Right? It plays tricks on you. It whispers, you've never done this before. You're not ready. Right? But when you open up your courage bank, you have evidence. You have proof. You have the receipts. Hey, I've been brave before. I can be brave again. See, this is neuroscience at work. See, by recalling past successes, you activate confidence circuits in your brain. You're literally rewiring your self-image. So here's your action. After this session today, write down 5 moments of courage in your life. And keep the list somewhere visible. And before your next big move, read it for 60 seconds. So drop a yes in the chat if you could write down at least 2 moments where you've shown courage, 2 that you could do today. Either write yes or give me a thumbs up. If you could think of 2 times you've exhibited courage and you could write those down today. Excellent. Great. That's your proof. And it will carry you when the fear tries to talk you out of action. Now, before we share the C3 model, let's recap a bit here. So first, fear is part of the equation, right? You can't have courage unless there's fear. And the 3 practices: micro courage, experiment, not ego, and to create your courage bank. Okay. Are you folks still with me? Like, hit me with a reaction if this is serving you. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. All right. So let's pull this all together, because in the moment of fear, you don't have time for like a theory, right? You need a tool. So that's why we teach the C3 model, which is calm, confirm, and commit. So let's start with calm. So when the fear hits you, when you have some hesitation, say to yourself, this is fear. Good. It means growth. Okay, so you've reframed it in that moment. You've taken something that was negative and reframed it into something positive. That's incredibly important. And then you need to breathe. You do a release breathing technique. So you breathe in for 4, you're going to hold it, and then you're going to breathe out for 4 with an audible sound. Okay, and you're going to think the word release silently. So we spent a bunch of time explaining the whole release breathing technique, practicing it during our self-talk like a pro session. So I won't go deeper now, but in for 4, hold, and an audible, forceful exhale, saying release in your head. See, that resets your nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system is activated to calm you down. Okay, so the second step is to confirm. So this is where you're going to pull 3 examples from your courage bank. Read them to remind yourself, hey man, I've done hard things before. I can do this. So you can have these in your journal, or maybe it's a Post-it note by your computer, or maybe on your phone. You know, maybe create a contact that's called courage in your phone, and in the notes, put your courage bank there. Look, do whatever works for you, but do it. Okay, and the third is to commit. So take 1 bold step right now. Not later, not when it's perfect, now. See, what you want is action, movement, progress, not perfection. In fact, perfection is the enemy of progress. So run that experiment. That's how you reset from frozen to forward in under 90 seconds. So here's your challenge. Before the end of the week, I know that we're only a couple days left, so I'm going to push you a little bit here. Before the end of the week, or I'll give you to Tuesday. I'll be kind. Use the C3 model once and notice how it shifts your state. And if you want to go deeper, if you want coaching on your bold moves in your life, schedule a free 60-minute strategy session. So Jen and I reserve a few of these spots each month. It's not a sales pitch. It's real coaching. We're going to help you identify where you're stuck, help you build some clarity, and create a plan to move you forward. You will leave this session empowered and energized to take some action, and you'll have concrete tools to implement in your life. There's no strings attached, so grab one of the spots before they're filled. Okay, let's check and see if I have some time for a couple questions. Looks like I have time for maybe 1 or 2. Let me scroll. Okay. This is David. What if fear means there's real risk? Okay. So, it's a great question. Thank you. Then shrink it. There's 2 steps to it. First, shrink it. Run it as an experiment. So lower the stakes. Learn, and then you can scale. Let me give you an example. Let's say you wanted to open up a restaurant, and restaurants can be risky. A lot of them fail. So that's your dream. You want to do it, but you're afraid. So let's shrink that. Let's start by making some meals for your friends and see if they enjoy them. Okay, you did that. That's a simple one. All right. Maybe it's to get a table at the marketplace, the farmer's market, right? Get a table there, set up a table, see if people buy them. Okay, you're successful there. All right, well then maybe get a food truck and see if that works. And then if that works, then you'll have the confidence to go ahead and open up that restaurant. Each one of those was an experiment. If it didn't work out, it was no big deal. You weren't quitting your job and risking your whole identity to start the restaurant. You just ran some experiments along the way. You shrunk it, you lowered the stakes, you learned from it, and then you can scale. Okay, I think I have time for one more. How do I stop perfectionism? Okay. Another great question. So start by shifting to experiments. That's really what it is. The goal isn't flawless execution. It's consistent learning, right? It's movement. We can sit here and just think about things, but you'll never know until you take some action. So take a small step and learn. And if it didn't work out, take another step in a different direction, change the variables. If you try and go for perfectionism, you'll never move forward. Again, perfectionism is the enemy of progress. And that's what we're looking for. Okay. I think we're coming. Oh, I have time for one more. Excellent. What if I freeze in the moment? This happened. It happens to all of us. See, that's why we built the C3 model. Okay, there's 3 steps to it, right? Calm. First, you're going to recognize that you are stressed. Recognize that you have fear. Understand where it's coming from. And actually embrace it. It means good things. If you have some fear, it means you're stretching yourself. It means you're growing. That's good. That feeling is part of it. So it's welcome. It means you're actually advancing. That's fantastic. So recognize it, reframe it, do your breathing technique so that you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and that will make the clean break from the stress. And then you're going to confirm. You're going to go to your courage bank and fill your brain with examples of you succeeding, you showing courage. And then your brain will say, that's right. That's what we do. We feel great. Let's move forward. And then that's the last part. It's to commit. It's to take a step at that moment. Don't wait around. Take a step. Okay. Hey, folks, I hope that served you. We're just coming to the end of our time. So let me do this. Let me wrap it up. Okay. So first, thank you for joining us today. It is our honor to coach you. And I'd ask that you be the difference in someone's life, right? Tell your colleagues, your friends, your family what you learned today in this Fox Talk and about the Fox Talks in general so that they can level up as well. You see, high performers don't hog all the good information for themselves. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not that they win and no one else does. No, high performers want everyone around them to succeed so everybody can level up, which will help them level up as well. So we hope you embrace that idea. But Jen and I are wishing you ridiculous amounts of success, of love, and joy. Okay, look for that email. Sign up for your strategy session. All right, talk soon.